I'm Victoria. I'm really happy that Dr. Rahm reached out to speak with us and hear our story about animal wellness. And I'm excited to be here and discuss also how you guys got into it, what happened with your story, how you got into animal wellness, and really curious about the avenues that you're taking into animal wellness and the differences between the conventional route that you may have known before compared to today and how you got here. This is a really cool story. I love seeing when medical professionals kind of enhance their path, and it's considered a little bit taboo in so many ways, but it's so cool to see when things change. And I think ultimately it's going to be for the better for all of us, animals included. So I think that's great.
Yeah, so my name's Clayton. So Dr. Rahm is actually let me rephrase that.
Yeah,
I am Dr. Rahm's spouse,
I
but
kind
I'm
of figured
also
so.
like I got to make sure I word it properly. I'm like, no, I serve her. But I'm the founder of the Root Brands, which is in collaboration with Bill and Koo.
Okay.
And when we look at the importance of pets and animals, I actually grew up in an integrated veterinary practice. So when it comes to animal health, my entire life has been built around pets, animals. My entire journey into human health and performance actually started in animal health. So
Mhm.
my parents, my dad graduated from veterinary school in I think 1975.
Classic, right? Classic
Yeah.
veterinary.
So
Yeah.
very classic veterinary training. They opened a clinic in the middle of nowhere in Southwest Washington State in the prairie. So
Wow.
their practice was focused on large and small animal.
Hmm.
So cows, pigs, horses, llamas, sheep, goats, bulls. My dad even did stuff with fish. We did
Wow.
no reptiles, no birds.
Hmm.
Um, but we had many, all the small animals, all the household pets,
Hmm.
and through the journey of growing up in the clinic, I mean, I was fortunate because I was doing fecal samples and blood samples and looking at parasites and different things in the microscope, and through my parents' clinical journey,
Hmm.
very early on, you started to recognize what some of the underlying problems were, right?
Hmm.
And I used to love the drug companies when I was really young because we would get free TVs, we would get,
That
VCR.
marketing, isn't it? Is that
You get
marketing?
spiffs, right? The more you prescribe, the more little fun things you
Oh
receive. And
yeah. Yeah.
well, this is not
Wait,
bad.
what's wrong with that picture too, though,
Yeah.
right?
It's like, well, the incentive might not be predicated on just doing the right things. It could be just on selling things.
Hmm.
But I can remember starting to study mineral supplementation in animals and people when I was about 8 years old, and having the conversations with my mom and my dad about, okay, why is this important? Because what became readily apparent was that there are two problems in animal health, which directly apply to the problems that we have in human health, but we
Exactly.
always see issues in animals before we see it in humans, especially dogs, because their metabolism is so much faster. And most people know that, your dogs are going to, accelerate their aging process at 7 years
Than we
every year
are.
for
Yeah,
humans. So
exactly.
those two factors were environment and diet,
Hmm.
right? There's nothing that falls outside of those two things. And
Yeah, at least the
the
majority, right? Yeah.
well, the environmental aspect is something that pertains to your outside environment as much as your inside environment.
Hmm.
And then understanding that your internal environment is also predicated on where you come from. So, when you have puppies, what's in mom goes into the puppies, and the same thing in humans,
Absolutely.
what's in mom goes into the baby.
Yeah.
And that
Through gestation and
environmental,
through birth and through breastfeeding, the whole process. Yeah.
absolutely. So all the way through. So when I was probably about a decade into their clinical practice, they started to integrate different things, nutrition, the importance of nutrition, understanding raw food, but then watching that raw food combination really shift a little bit. That industry has grown significantly, which is also where the introduction of Bill and Koo really adapted from.
Tell you our story about that in a minute. And it's amazing once you recognize how there's something is wrong with the kibble. I think most of us have a little bit of like a spark, early on, we're like, wait, something is not right. Imagine if I ate this every single day of our lives, right?
Yep.
But with dogs, it's like, well, what am I supposed to feed, right? And nutrition, like you said, being such an important, critical element, and for it to be so difficult, I can't imagine that many years ago. Oh, you got a floofy.
Yep. So
Oh,
since we're
sweet
talking
puppy.
pets, I'll show you my youngin. Come here.
Oh, that's not a little one. Well, hi. So cute. Boy,
She's
girl,
chewing below me. She's like, I need to hang out with my dad.
Oh, she's so cute. She's
So
so fluffy.
I was actually talking with my mom and dad about her last week pertaining to
Mhm.
diet, right?
Uh-huh.
Yes, because
Still
you
difficult for a lot of people too.
it
Yeah.
well, and the thing is being a steward of these guys, right?
Mhm.
And this is our responsibility, right? Because we are the ones responsible for their well-being,
Yeah,
just
from
like
A to
kids.
Z, from like their whole entire life and whether they even get to live. I
Yes.
always say that to our community. It's so important to me to understand that it's not like a human being where they grow up and they can go make their own decisions or they can at least vocalize to you what they want and how they're feeling. But when it comes to animals, they don't have that luxury and we
No.
control every aspect of their life. So it's incredibly important.
And if you're going to invest in having one, you have to invest in their well-being, right? Because and I can speak from experience because Coco here is my second doodle. Her
Mhm.
sister Tilly
Mhm.
um, died in a tragic pool accident last summer while we were traveling, and she was 2.5 years old, and she was my soul animal. And
Mhm. Yeah.
the experience, and it was weird because we know they age 7 years faster. And when we had our routine where we have a pool in the backyard, we have sport court, and then I have a hill that we would
Mhm.
throw the ball on. And I kept having this vision that I was going to have her for 14 years. So I was envisioning that I was going to be 60 throwing the ball with my dog and we'd be running around and it would be great. Um,
Mhm.
and then we had this accident, and it took 2 days to really process the whole thing because we were traveling, and I realized that she was 2.5, so she was 14. I thought
Yeah.
it was my time and not hers. And actually dealing with the loss, right, of someone so close to you. This is the part people don't understand with animals. It's like they're better than people in most ways from a relationship standpoint.
Mhm.
And if that's the case, then you have to take care of them. You want them to be here as long as possible. You want them to be as healthy as possible. But in talking with my mom, when it comes to their lifestyle, and I'm having to do this at home because um, of making sure that I'm going to take care of her and our other dogs as well as possible. They have to have variety, right? And I think this is the big problem with people with food for animals. You just feed them the same thing every day,
Yeah.
and they
That's
they
table,
really,
right?
especially
Yeah.
these guys, if it's kibble and everything, you got to get rid of all of it, right? The freeze dried foods and whatnot that are now available are so much better for them,
Mhm.
but you
So
want to
many
give them
options
variety.
now. Yeah, there's so many options. I mean, we couldn't live ourselves on just eating the same food every single day, especially being processed. Like, let's not even talk about that. But could you
Yep.
survive on chicken, broccoli, and rice every single day? There's no way. Your body would be showing symptoms. They take away the boredom, which I think we're also very responsible. Their quality of life too, right?
Yeah.
It's not just the fact that they have to be healthy, but it's like if you love someone, do you really want them to be bored with every single food that they
Yep.
eat? It's really sad. So, yeah, I
And
think there's just so many important aspects of this.
and that's where, and then the understanding of bioscience engineering that Dr. Rahm has, what she looked at. We've done the same thing in humans, right? For the human line of
I saw
products, but
that. And you guys have both lines. And I think I even saw recently a fertility one, being that
oh
I'm
yes,
close to 9 months pregnant now.
you don't
I
look it.
Oh, trust me, it's there. It's really big. She took over my whole body. It's like I'm all belly and everything else is kind of small.
You know what? Every woman would love to have that option. The
Thank
big
you.
the big thing is
Yeah.
one the human health, because they go hand in hand. You can't have unhealthy people with healthy pets because unhealthy people make unhealthy choices, right?
Yeah.
Toxic people create a toxic environment, and that's what it really comes down to. But
Mhm.
what the introduction of the Bill and Coo line really created, because Christina looked at, the key components to animal health. So the first part, the foundational piece, is cleaning up the mess, right? You got to take the trash out
Right.
because we
Absolutely.
are a victim of our environment. So you've got to remove the toxins that are destroying them, because all of the allergy problems, all of the cancer problems, and I've seen this from my upbringing. When I was a child, we didn't have canine cancer. We didn't have canine allergies the
Yeah.
way that they have them now. They
Yeah,
didn't exist.
actually,
And you,
yeah, when we had the cancer story, I don't know if you're familiar with our story, but I can kind of give you a brief summary of what happened with us. So, I was very much like a lot of other dog parents who were trying our best to feed our dogs, a healthy premium kibble diet, the best possible out there, which you pay a lot of money. And given that we have three huskies, it's definitely not cheap, but we were still willing to do that. But all that time, I still felt like something was off. It's still kibble. So I tried to add boiled fish on top of their kibble, some veggies. I just tried whatever I could, to make that change. And I didn't know how. I tried to study some books and it was really overwhelming of how it was supposed to be done. And I just caved to the pressure of not knowing, still being confused, and didn't do it. 7 months later, approximately, one of our huskies, I found a huge blueberry-sized tumor on her foot, on one of her toes, and went to the vet. Didn't expect it. The worst news, she's only 7 years old, 7 years old. And she was diagnosed with plasmacytoma, which is a cancer. And she recommended amputating her foot and all that stuff. And my intuition, because JC and I, we run Husky Squad. We're always health minded already. We're health conscious ourselves. We were thinking, okay, this doesn't make sense. And in my mind, all my alarms went off. If you cut a tumor off, and I'm sure you probably can kind of get the idea, understand that when you cut a tumor off, you're just cutting off the root cause. You're not
right?
dealing
Yeah,
with where is that coming from? And I knew something was off. Like, there's no way. I was like, if we cut this off, there's going to be 10 more tumors. I just knew it. So we went on a journey trying to find a holistic veterinarian to give us another opinion. I asked the current vet, hey, do we have time? She's like, yeah, you have a couple of weeks to make that decision. I was like, yes, that's what I'm going to be doing. So we found an amazing holistic veterinarian. We lived in Portland back then in Oregon. And his name is Dr. Keith Weingart. And he's a specialty. He does holistic, but he does a lot of deeper holistic stuff than just the basics.
he's at
He died.
Oregon Health Sciences University, isn't he?
No, he's actually
Yep.
teaching elsewhere. Um, he went to Cornell.
Okay.
He had a practice in San Diego, and then he moved to Portland. And his practice is just known for treating a lot of problems because people come to him at end of life kind of situations.
Yep.
So he ends up with all of that. And I saw in one of his reviews that that's what people talked about. So we immediately gravitated to go see him, and they booked an emergency appointment because he's usually booked out for like weeks and months at a time. And the moment we walked into his practice, our life just changed. Because it's like, you usually see the vet for 5 minutes, put him on a cold table, take the temperature. Our dogs hate it,
Yep.
and the whole like model of like, okay, here's your drugs, here's your surgery, and here's, and that's, even though this is not how JC and I lived, and this is not how we, encourage our community to live, but we just didn't know there was even anything better. So in walks, our dog with a tumor on her toe, and I had a lot of hope. I was terrified, but also I had a lot of hope. And there's so many dog parents that go through this. So and we're just very grateful that we found Dr. Keith, because when we walked in with this cancer case, he was just treating it like it's another kennel cough, or it was like, I was
Yep.
like, wait, you're not worried? Because like you talked about, these things, cancer, all these issues, there's a root cause.
Yep.
And he explained, he does a lot of traditional Chinese medicine, and he explained how the metaphor of the river getting blocked, that flow, that chi of life getting blocked. See, like, I knew you'd relate to this. That's and I was like drinking every drop of information that he was giving me. And I was like, wow, this is just, and it inspired us so much. And we knew that we're going to go on a raw diet, but he was able to simplify and coach me through the
Yep.
process because it's not complicated to feed healthy,
No,
you know.
you know, it's actually really simple. It just is a matter of directing your spending, spending a little time to do
Yes.
your research, and being, you know, the interesting part is being a little creative, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, the importance for these guys to have good fats, you know, so like we love avocados, right? So many people love avocados, but when they start to turn brown, you're like, oh, I can't eat that avocado. It's bad. Well, if you're not going to eat it, dog food, right?
Yeah.
Dogs love, like this one, she got her first avocados last night. Love avos, and they need the fats, and then you get a little creative and like, okay, I'm making eggs. Well, what am I going to do with the shells?
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
you start
Or like
to look at.
like veggie scraps that you're just cutting off, put it with bones in a bone broth, make a good stock. And it's amazing for their joints, for their health. And
Yep.
it just like you said, is creativity, but willing to dive in to do that initial learning. And I
Yep.
think there was a lot of lacking information, back then.
Yeah.
But also a lot, whenever there's information, it's super overwhelming. It's like, oh, you need 100 grams of this, 100. Dr. Keith Weingart, the one that I read, he was like, don't overcomplicate it. It's really, really simple. You don't need to have 20 grams of sardines and 100, like, don't worry about it. Do you think that dogs have been eating like this with a scale
Yeah.
for hundreds of years? They haven't. And now with this perfectly measured kibble, they're sicker than ever,
Yeah.
right?
And because there's no nutrients, it's all cooked out. I mean, they say that we put
Oh,
this in and
yeah.
it's all additives. None of it's
Carbs too. It's
natural.
loaded with carbs that dogs, and that's what we learn about the whole where cancer kind of comes from. And some dogs
Yep.
are more deeper affected than that. But between his treatment, going raw, he makes his own herbal blends. He's amazing. He's
Yep.
just an incredible healer. Traditional Chinese medicine, I swear, I have the footage of it, and I actually have it in our course for our members. Shrinks and shrinks. 28 days. The tumor was flat to her skin, and you couldn't even see that it existed.
Did you go
28
back
days.
to the other veterinarian with your dog and go, hey, it's been more than a
Oh,
couple
I
weeks.
did a little
Can
bit
you
of
check this
this.
out?
I did. And it's like a lot of the answers that I got from, oh, it must be her genes, it must be an exception, because that's like and it's like, no, and this, we experienced this, not on this level with cancer, but when our Kimahri was diagnosed with cancer, and this was 6 years ago. She was 7 and she's 13 right now. She acts like a puppy, you
Yep.
know. Cancer never returned. But during that same time, my older dog had dermatitis all over his body. My younger dog, the other one, Yuna, had all this dermatitis around her skin, around her eyes, around her, paws, and we couldn't heal it. But then we applied the same philosophy and the same way that we're talking about that dogs should be eating. All of it went
Yeah.
away.
All of it goes
All,
away.
yeah,
Surprising. Like almost like it was not a problem in the first place. Something was just missing and something was added inappropriately. And you go,
yeah,
wait a minute, this
exactly.
shouldn't be this easy.
Yeah, and
But it,
can you imagine, like, imagine her having to go through all the chemotherapy and all those things, and and it's like it's really painful. We can't even. That's what Dr. Keith really highlighted for me. Is like, who gave us permission to even put our dogs through this type of pain without asking them? We can't. We can ask a close friend, family of ours, is this what you want? But we can't ask our dogs
yep.
or our cats to go
And they
through
don't
that.
know what you're doing, and and it's not necessary. And that was when my kind of the same path when my dad started doing Chinese herbs because they're up in Rochester, Washington, so they're not far from Portland. My parents would go
Oh,
back
I
and
wonder if
forth
they
from
know each
Portland.
other.
Yeah, I bet they do. Uh, and it was interesting because when my dad started using herbs, we had a master herbalist come in that was showing them how to use Onung Bio and some of the different herbs, and he would ask the questions like, okay, why do you use this and this and this, and why do you use it in those combinations? And it was funny because she looked at him and she's like, because my grandfather's grandfather's grandfather did it that way. And you go,
Passed on knowledge.
that's a lot of life experience. So
Yes.
if it's still working, then you keep doing it. And if it didn't work, it would have changed.
Yeah.
And I think that's really the important part, principally,
Hmm.
of understanding that for these guys as well as for us, right? It's a matter of cleaning up your environment and then
Yep.
putting all of the good components in. And when you look at like herbs, there's a lot of stuff that's amazingly powerful for each of us, for that them and us, but they're not things that we readily will have available in our
Yep.
diet or in our environment.
Yep.
And so it's how you properly put those combinations together. And that was, what Christina's done from a Bill and Koo standpoint for these guys was creating specific formulas, for joint and longevity, for the greens, which she loves, and
Yep.
a
I love
collagen
the I
and
love this
beet
one.
combination.
This one, the Annie greens, I really like.
Yes.
I love,
And
I mean, people don't realize how important prebiotics and probiotics are. It's such an important element, especially as a dog's age. It's such an
yeah,
important thing because the
when you look at
digestive
their gut health,
food,
right? You
yeah.
look at gut health, and the cool part is with these guys, because you're always going to see what their health looks like, uh,
Hmm.
because they're going to go outside and they're going to go potty, and you can look at their poo and go, well, that doesn't look very good, or that looks
Ah,
really good. I guess I'm doing something right. And
yeah.
we were gone for a couple days, and I had picked up some kibble, for her to mix in with the rest of the food that I made, and I tried it once, and she didn't like it, just as a
Diarrhea?
little additive. And so, my son was watching her while we were gone, and of course, I left the bag outside where her food is in the fridge with the other dogs. And he's like, she went to bathroom all over the house. I'm like, and I got home, and I'm like, what did you feed her? He's like, what was in the bag? I'm like, oh, you know.
Oh.
I'm like, and she looked at me. She's like, Dad, you got to help me. So
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah,
okay,
their stool will tell a story really quickly.
yeah,
And that's a nice thing. It's like when you feed real food, if something doesn't sit with their digestive tract or there's some healing you need to do, their stool will tell you a story. When you're on
yep,
kibble, it never will because Kimahri, our cancer survivor that is cancer-free for 6 years now, until we changed her life with Dr. Keith, she had chronic diarrhea in beginning it was like splat splat, but later on it just became like soft stool and we're like, okay, we'll deal with that, that's better. But no, you know that was like her body warning us that something
yeah,
is not okay and we didn't know how to listen. And then when you don't know how to listen, there goes cancer
yeah.
you know
Well, and being able to take care of them when you feed them right, if they're fed, and it doesn't have to be completely raw, right? That I think it's an important part now, that you don't have to feed them all raw, but when
it
you
has to be real food, that's the most
real
important.
food, their
And
stool,
understanding, yeah.
they can go outside and go potty outside, and their poop doesn't stick around, right? Because it'll go away
Yeah, that's
really
how you
quickly. So you're
know
like,
it's
wait a minute, I
good.
don't have to pick up after my dogs as much,
Mm.
because environmentally it just goes back into the environment pretty easily.
And the volume
All of these,
too really shrinks down, right? The
yeah,
the volume compared to like a big blob of kibble poop, or you have the real food, because what Dr. Keith explained is that their body uses more of the food than when you have this carb loaded trash that is
yep,
mostly filler that passes through their system and that's it. But when they eat healthy, real food that is appropriate for canine nutrition,
yep.
obviously a bowl of rice is not. I think we can all agree to that. But if they eat properly, their stool is smaller because they're using so much more
And the
of their.
same thing, applies to human health,
Yeah,
right? Is when you eat good things and you eat right as a human, you have the same process.
yeah.
And that's where, we look at the obesity problems in our culture in the United States, and you look at the diet, and it's all processed foods, it's everything. You get people that are all distended, and they're like, yeah, you're compacted, you're distended, you're bloated, you're inflamed. You're like,
It's
I'm
not
fat.
okay.
Like, no,
It's
it's like these
It's
things are changeable. They're not hard to change, right? And if you do things right, you get amazing outcomes, because our bodies and their bodies respond so quickly, because of
Mhm.
how unique we are in our design and animals are in their design, that you can be going down this path and start to see that there's all of these problems, But if you make adjustments and you make changes and you go, well, I'm not going to do that anymore, I'm going to start doing good stuff, the body responds really, really
Oh,
quickly.
absolutely. Yeah,
And
absolutely. And
there's
this
no
is
sense in blue.
it's a key component. It's like where you have the nutrition aspects, you have the environmental aspect too, because we're like in a toxic soup pretty much. But when you take care of it, most of the time, everything else will fall into place. But then, if you need specialty care, like for example, somebody that's older, whether they're humans or they're animals, when they're older, I feel like you need extra care, extra nutrients, extra work. And that's when I think it's so wonderful that there's herbalists and there's people like Dr. Rahm and you guys that are creating these fantastic products to provide a little bit more assistance in the situations that are not the norm, where maybe disease has gone for a little too long, or maybe you need extra help with detox. I think when you combine those things, it's a really powerful space. I'm really about and that's something that comes from our background. I'm really about encouraging people and dog parents to listen to their intuition and stop relying 100% on what a white jacket says. Sure, I respect doctors tremendously. And I actually learned to become that way when I met Dr. Keith. He's like, what's your intuition? He guided me to really listen to how I felt about our animals and their experiences so I can be empowered to make decisions. But when I have done the best that I can as a dog parent, and if there's still like the cancer was something that needed a little bit more kick in the butt, right?
Yep.
That's where we got his expertise and his guidance. But the empowerment that he gave me and my husband as a dog parents is incredible because you no longer okay going to doctor's office, what am I doing? You know what you should be doing if you really really listen, right, to both yourself and your animals. But then when you need extra assistance, this is where people like you guys come into the picture and be like, okay, this is what's really going on. Things have gone really stagnant for a long time, so we need a little extra detox, a little extra, you know
Yeah, it's the fun narrative of making the choices for these little guys and making the choices for yourself, right?
Mhm.
And the bridge between those two things of knowing that if you're looking at doing something for these little guys, as I have the Coco dog at my feet, you should also be looking at doing this for yourself,
Doesn't
right?
it come
Because
natural, don't you feel?
yeah,
It almost can't operate without each other.
well, and that it's the one thing from growing up in the environment and being around these guys and having them at the house, that our lives are better because they're in it,
Hmm.
and their lives are worthwhile because they're with us,
Right.
right?
It's
Because that's
it has to be a symbiosis. It has to
yeah.
be.
And when you see this quite often. You see now, you've seen stories over the last decade of how dogs can pick up health problems in people. There are dogs that can smell cancer, right?
Mhm.
There are dogs that can smell liver problems. Because they're like, or they know the smell of their owner. So if anything changes in our biology, they'll sit there and look at you and go, "You're not right, right? You're different. We need to
One
figure
of
this
my
out."
dogs knows that I'm seriously pregnant. He's completely changed since I'm pregnant.
Yep.
You know?
He's like, "Wait a minute, there's something growing in you. I mean, you look different.
Yeah.
But there's, and
He gives
then,
me that eye too. Like he looks at me, he's like hugged up against me, sitting on the floor. They know. It's
yep.
incredible.
And they're
Animals
they're
are just
so
like
they're so
pure.
sensitive.
Yeah, and they have this pureness about them,
Yep.
even if they live with us, there's something incredible about dogs that
Yep.
their understanding of nature and their environment and their surroundings is just it's remained. Like while we humans have been asleep on that subject for so long, and we don't really have that connection, we can rebuild it. And there's ways to
Yep.
do that, to rebuild that connection. That's why we love nature and the outdoors so much, because it has repaired. But guess what? The love for nature and the depth that we have with nature, it's because of our dogs.
Yep.
Like we
We get
went
to
camping,
learn. We get to learn a
all
lot
of
from
that.
him. It's interesting when we talk about reconnecting to the environment and the electrical aspects and the importance of grounding, right? And just when you go for a walk with your dog barefoot, right? Just get your feet
Depends
dirty.
where, but yes.
Yeah. If you're around a bunch of dog park, not barefoot. But if you're if you're out in the woods, like I don't, I don't take her to the dog park yet, but you just in our backyard where we got the grass and you're throwing the ball around.
Yeah,
Just be out there barefoot, right?
yeah,
Get grounded. But
absolutely.
the interesting part is watching this one, because when we go outside, the first thing she does is start rolling around in the grass. I'm like, I know exactly what you're doing. You're recharging. And she's like,
Yeah,
I love this. She says, ah, I feel so good. And she'll roll around and she'll just,
like belly open, all of
yeah.
that.
She says, I'm just happy right now. And I'm like, I'm recharging. And she's rolling down the hill, which, my Tilly, her sister, never did. And I'm like, okay, this is a different personality, but I know what you're doing. And,
Yeah.
watching them recharge. And the important part of, like, with your dogs, when they go outside, they're actually, creating a bunch of negative ions and stuff on them and
Oh,
recharging their bodies. So when you give them hugs and when they're giving you hugs,
and
they're actually
you.
giving you energy, right? They're
Wow.
recharging you and you can feel that, you feel love, but
Mhm.
they're recharging you when they're doing their part. And that's one of the things that they're like, oh, well, you need a hug right now, and it's
Mhm.
always nice to have, an extra entity that's there that knows when it's hug time, because people, we don't give enough hugs, we don't get enough hugs, but if
Yeah,
you've
we
got
need
your
to work
dogs
on that a lot.
around.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, you talked about grounding and it all relates to the EMF subject and all of that. That is so important. We live in these concrete houses, unnatural floors. On top of that, we're wearing shoes. That was one of the focus points that we did in our fertility journey was grounding.
Yep,
Obviously you want to be careful where you do that, but if you find a space or if you have a backyard, it's so important. You actually feel it. You
yep.
feel it go through you. And dogs do that all the time because, well, some of us put dog shoes on them, but that's a whole other topic.
Yeah.
Our huskies can't stand that.
Yeah, huskies are smart enough, they'll look at you and go,
Yeah,
"You're
they
not
know.
doing this to me." It's like,
Yeah,
"I'm made to run, and you're not taking these away from me." And
exactly. I need my toe beans. But yeah,
they're
it's
amazing as a
incredible.
breed because they're so smart.
Yeah.
And, I think and you guys know this, having them, when you're picking a pet, a lot of times the pet will pick you. But if you know which breeds specifically pertains to your personality, your activity, people that have huskies better know that they're going to be active,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
I
that was
people
that.
people that I talk to is, I have a husky and he tears up the house. I'm like, it's because he's telling you I need something to do, and
Oh,
you're not giving me the activity, you're not giving me the outlets. It's the same thing with having young kids and teenagers. If
yeah,
they're causing problems, they're not worn out enough.
yeah. They haven't
If
had the
you know,
stimulation.
yeah, if you give them the outlet, and the cool part with those dogs and the working dogs and the active dogs, which is what I've always been around. I've always had corgis and then these guys.
Oh, corgis are not just cute; they are work.
Oh yeah, and they will tell you, they'll look at you like,
You
yo,
haven't done this with me in a long
we
time.
need to do something like now,
Yeah.
or I'm going to drag you. and,
Yep.
and being
Can you bring me
able
my clay?
to have
I'm
those
gonna show
have
you my
those
little
little guys keep us
monster.
active. Do what?
I'm gonna show you my little monster one, my younger one, because he's all husky. Come here, Nikolai. You want to come up, up, up? Come on, up, 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 up. Oh, good boy. You see this?
Oh, look at it.
You see that? He
Oh,
is
he's
four.
beautiful.
He is four, and if he doesn't get his needs met,
Yep,
he will tell us. My husband, now that I'm so pregnant, I can't, do the distance that I usually do. We go
yep,
hiking for miles. My husband is out biking with him every day.
yeah,
Because, like you said, if you don't take care of them, and it's actually not even fair, it's not
yep,
fair. When you get into the working breed, and it's funny because corgis are there too, and most people don't know that. But when you get into the working breeds, you have to fulfill their needs.
yeah,
And through fulfilling their needs, you actually become a better human, you
yep.
know? But having huskies, we chose the breed because my husband and I love hiking. That's our thing
Mm.
since we met. So we wanted a dog that can keep up with the hiking and keep up with the weather because we love four seasons, snow, all that good stuff.
Oh,
So it's like perfect. The only challenge I have to say that later on we fixed is that they are not off leash dogs. I think corgis can be when they're
oh
properly
yeah. No, they prefer it because they'll make sure you don't get out of line.
But huskies, it's like it took for us a lot. Like they're all off leash at this point. They have been for a while, but it was a lot of work creating that bond, that
Yep.
connection that comes through bonding outdoors, that comes through meeting their needs. So it's kind of like it's this
Yep.
beautiful symbiosis. The more that you give, the more that you receive. Actually, when we changed their diet, they became so much closer to us. You know, when we
Yeah.
started giving them the right supplements, the right veterinary care, they love our veterinarian. And it's like they don't talk to you, but they do. And if you listen, they share with you all those things, you know? It's a different
You'll learn how to
conversation.
communicate. Yeah, you'll
Yeah.
learn how to communicate with them because they do talk, right?
Yes.
And they
It's
will
body
tell you.
language. It's
Yeah,
body language. It's their eyes.
it's all
Yeah.
here and positioning and how they correct everything. But what you're hitting on as far as how we communicate with them and how we function with them, I'll give you another piece of insight which you don't have because you are a woman. Guys, what she just outlined is how you have to apply your relationship with your wife or your significant other as well, because if you're not doing the things you need to do, they're not going to stick around. It's the true application of if you take care of them, they'll never leave you,
Right.
right?
Because you feel that
If
bond,
you
that connection because you're
yes,
meeting needs.
and it's the one thing that Christina and I have in our relationship that we're constantly talking about because our schedules are so busy and we're traveling so much that when if we're not being cognizant of our connection of the two of us,
Yeah,
right? And
absolutely.
it's usually me, right? It's on the guy's side because we are the ones responsible for that connectivity in our relationship because it's natural for women.
To
It's
nurture, we do that already. Yeah.
and having that need, that desire, that capability, but it's not something that is naturally expressed on a
Mhm.
man's part of knowing that it takes work, right? It's different for us that if you're not making the effort to do it and you're not showing that, look, this is important and I'm learning how to do this, or we figure out those things, you're going to have problems in your relationship, just like you're going to have a problem with relationships with
Yeah.
these little ones, because they're
Yeah.
going to go, look, if you're not going to take care of me, I'm going to go find someone else to do it because
Mhm.
I'm pretty cool, right? They know. They're like,
Yeah.
look, you know what? We're
They
supposed to
do not
have
have
this.
confidence issues like humans do. Well, some of them
Yeah.
do, but it's very rare. They
But
feel they're scared.
the expression of personality issues in dogs is a direct expression of their owner,
Right. Oh
right?
yeah. Oh,
Because they're
100%.
expressing the energy that they're receiving. So if you're neurotic and you're
Oh, I've
having
seen
these
that
issues,
firsthand. Yeah. I
especially
mean,
with with huskies and with these really intelligent, really active breeds, they're going to take on your traits. So
yeah.
if you look at a dog, you're like, oh my God, this dog's crazy. I'm like, ah,
Yeah, let's go find out who is taking care of that dog.
yep,
Absolutely. Yeah, I've been training and doing one-on-one training with a lot of clients because we work with huskies and the knowledge that we've gained over the years. One of the clients that we work with was a woman with two wolf dogs, and the wolf dogs wanted to kill each other, and they were brothers. And I was at first a bit overwhelmed because I've never worked with wolf dogs. And I've tried to kind of push that, wolf dog to the side and not think about it so I can help the dog parent and help the dog because it's important. So we did that and we went through the training. I focused my energy the absolute most on working with the dog mom and maybe 10% on the wolf dogs. That's it,
yep,
because she really needed my help. She really,
yep,
and it's beautiful because they are a perfect family now. They couldn't even make eye contact. They wanted to kill each other. They couldn't be anywhere near
yep,
each other, but now they're fine. And it's because it's not necessarily, I don't knock people for, having, because sometimes life just happens and you get anxiety but those things come over to your dog. Your dog is a direct reflection of what you have going on inside. So if you want to fix your dog situation, first look at yourself.
yep,
And then when you look at yourself and you're able to really work with yourself for the sake of yourself and everyone around you, your dog is just going to turn around and be like, this is what I needed from you all this time, you
yep.
know? So
When
so you're absolutely right about that.
it's the important premise of yeah the component of people, pets, and planet, right? The when we look at environmentalism, the most important aspect of environmentalism is actually this environment,
Oh
right?
yeah.
What's on the
Mhm.
inside? Because if we don't take, and that's our only job, right? If we don't take care
We
of
all did that, right?
our own environment, we
Yeah,
are our toxicity creates a toxic environment around us. So
absolutely.
it's going to create a toxic environment in our little ones. It's going to create toxic relationships around us. But when you begin to understand that you create the world around you, right? So as especially being a mom, right? The expression that you put into your baby is going to create their
The
world.
world, yeah. And
And so
everyone,
the
everything and
more
everyone they touch.
Yeah, the more we put a focus on ourselves to do better, the better they're going to be, the
Hmm.
better, then if you have a happier, healthier dog or a pet,
It's all just,
they're going to
yeah,
live longer, they're going to help you, you help them, everybody's happy. Other people look at you and go, "Wow, you got these amazing pets. You must be a good person." I'm like, "Ah, true, true." Because
yeah,
I've never met someone that has amazing relationships with their animals and their animals have a great relationship with them that's a bad person. But I'll tell you, I know a lot of people that abuse animals that should not be alive, right?
yeah.
And
Hmm.
it's really understanding
When
that
you can get to
if we
that
take care of
point,
ourselves.
yeah, when you can get to that point of actually abusing another being that has no power to fight back or has no power to change their state of life, that's just downright. I can't even put myself in that frame of mind. But like you're saying, it's a whole toxic, it's that circle that goes around, toxic to your dog, toxic to yourself, toxic to everyone around, you know, around you. I don't want to say around you because not around you, but around that person.
Yep.
It's but it's just a place that I just I can never understand that mentality. I don't get it because that is really stark.
And that's our journey.
Yeah. But it's
So
incredible. Once we heal and once we it's very therapeutic when we start touching one thing, If we see our dog is not doing good, don't ignore it. You see you're not doing it, don't start with that one thing. You awaken a compassion within yourself and within that circle of karma around you for things to get better. I think that is such an incredible thing because it may seem hard to begin, like let's say you've been feeding your dog kibble and you don't care what you eat yourself. It may seem difficult to take that first step, but when you take that first step to make that change, it just becomes easier, right? Every single time. And
the journey begins with one step, right?
mhm,
Want to
the
start
first step is
hiking,
hard. Yeah,
just figure out the path and go.
yeah, exactly.